Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Western Upstate Association of Realtors Professional Development Day. It's our very first full day format of this type, and we're all very excited, I know, to do this. And I want to thank you all for being here today in the facility, the state-of-the-art facility that we have. And thank you to everyone else that's watching in your office, on your computer, on the web, the streaming video. I just think that's so cool, and I know everybody else here thinks that's so cool as well. And we're just excited, all of us, to be able to bring that to you in that manner. And we've got a full day planned, a very full day. We're going to hear from a sponsor or two. We've got several folks that you all know that are going to update us on state issues, national issues, things that are happening in the industry, changes that we need to know about. And then we've got a sponsored lunch, and followed by the afternoon sessions that Josh is going to do a social media class. And lastly, Diana is going to do a very important forms update for us that will wrap up the afternoon. So we're real excited to have a full day for you, and we plan to do this periodically, maybe frequently. So we want your feedback, we want your comments, your thoughts, what you like, what you don't like. We want to make it efficient, effective, and something that's a good tool for everybody. And again, thank you for being here. Before we get started, though, if you will stand, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I know everybody here has sponsored something before. We've all sponsored stuff at one time or another, and you know how important it is to get recognized as a sponsor. So we couldn't do this without our sponsors, and at this time I want to introduce, you all know him, but we're very appreciative of what our sponsors are doing for us. And so at this time I want to recognize and call up Don Bossi, Old Republic Home Warranty, and he's going to give us an update on things.
Thank you. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody here and our online guests. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you. It's back to school time, so I gave you some pens and writing pads, so you're all ready to go back to school. I'm going to be very brief today. Two things that we're going to talk about, well, maybe three. Old Republic Home Protection, or Old Republic Home Warranty. Home Protection is our legal name. We are one of 137 companies owned by Old Republic International. If you've looked closely at some of your closing documents, you'll see Old Republic Title, Old Republic Mortgage Insurance, 137 different types of insurance type companies. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. Old Republic International has been in business 92 years. We've been in business 42 years, selling home warranties through the real estate community. And I think that's really important. We don't have an online plan that homeowners can order for $29.99. We do not market direct, and as of March 1st, we no longer sell direct. So what does that mean to you? When someone calls my voicemail or the corporate voicemail, my voicemail will say, "Hi, if you're a realtor, you need to get in touch with you, leave me a message." If you're a homeowner looking to order a plan, please call your local realtor. That became effective March 1st, which is also the date our new economy plan became effective. It's the folder brochure on your tables, and if you'll look at it closely, you see, gosh, that looks just like your other plan. It does, and there are two brochures right now which are a little bit confusing. Those will be merged together on our next print run, which will probably be first of the year. Best way to look at this is the back page. And like I said, if you notice, there are only two differences in this plan and our standard plan. Number one is this plan does not include washer, dryer, kitchen, refrigerator. We did that because of our competitors don't include washer, dryer, kitchen, refrigerator in their plan, and we always have in our standard plan. So we wanted you to see the second difference, which is the price. Notice this plan starts at $360. Exact same coverage, exact same terms and conditions as our standard plan, just no washer, dryer, kitchen, fridge. But if you look down the right-hand side, you see they can add either or. So $360, $75 HVAC option, listing coverage is a no-brainer. Most aggressive price out there, best coverage out there, saves your seller money, and gives you some room to negotiate if they want to upgrade, or if you want to upgrade it yourself and provide it as a closing jet. If you want washer dryer, kitchen refrigerator, and ice maker, then switch to our standard plan at $470. It's $10 cheaper. You're adding that. Is that confusing? Well, to make it a little bit simpler, I've created a one-page cheat sheet. That's all the plans are. Remember, I'm a former realtor, so I've been there. So if you notice, the only thing this cheat sheet doesn't have on it is the options, add-on options, but that shows you every plan we have with the new plan being on the far right. And if you'll notice all the check boxes, it's exactly the same as our standard plan, except for that one difference, washing, dryer, kitchen, fridge. So $360 for full coverage on a home warranty, what do you think? Pretty aggressive, huh? If you do the math, do the comparison, like I did when I was a realtor before I took this job, you'll see that the Old Republic plan provides the most coverage with the fewest limits at the best price of any plan out there. So if you're looking to provide your client the best product, the most coverage at the lowest price, then you'll go with Old Republic. So no direct sales, new economy plan, aggressive price, great coverage. What questions can I answer for you? All right, that's all I have today. So thanks for having me. My cell phone number is, or excuse me, my phone number is on the writing pads I gave you. If you have any questions, call me anytime. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate that. Thank you again for your sponsorship today. Before I turn the podium over to Peggy, there's a couple things I want to talk about. There's a lot of things that we could talk about, but I think two things are real important that I just want to share with you. And the first is, I again want to thank all of our previous board of directors. There have been maybe 25, I think roughly is the number, 25 previous boards of directors. I want to thank them for all that they have done. This is just not a result of the last one or two or three boards of directors. It's been a long road, and they have been very committed to our association and MLS. They have spent a lot of their time. Several of you all are in the audience today, and I thank you. I thank those that aren't here. And on behalf of the board, our board members, and Peggy, I just want to acknowledge how much you've done for us. And that is very important. And not just the board of directors, but the committees. We have very strong committees and very smart people on our committees. And I think that those committees and our members and our board of directors and our brokers, that's what sets us apart, in my view, from some other boards and associations. We have dedication and commitment and involvement, and that has culminated in where we are today. And so to all of you, I say thank you personally and on behalf of the board of directors and on behalf of Peggy. And I would add to that Peggy runs this like a business, and the fiscal discipline and operational efficiency with which she has run this organization for many, many years, combined with the boards and the committees and our membership. That's why we are where we are today, and why we're breaking ground with the technology, and Josh's commitment and abilities are allowing us to do this. And we're breaking ground a little bit, and I think that's kind of cool. So thank you to all of you again. Second thing that I want to convey to you is talk about change. The saying, one constant is change, right? Everything's always about change. Well, you're in the brokerage business just like me, and the brokerage business is constantly about change, and not just the last 2 years, the last 20 years. Think of all the changes, and we change with it, we roll with it, we adapt to it, we get better, more efficient. And I think the the brokerage business, the residential brokerage business, is as entrepreneurial as you're going to find. And I think in that same vein, our uh, association and MLS organization at the Western Upstate is entrepreneurial as well. And that shows, that's evidenced by this building, what we did with the uh, uh, technology and the commitment that we've committed to our members with this building. I view our association as um, entrepreneurial. And I can tell you, as the board chair, our board of directors is absolutely 100% committed to monitoring the changes going on out there. We're going to we commit unequivocally to staying in front of the changes that are out there, and we want to be leaders. We don't want to follow, and I think we're doing that right now with what we've done here. So I know it's a little bit of a editorial comments, but I feel strongly about all of those, and we just need to keep working hard as a board, and we'll do that. You got our commitment to that, and anything that you all ever see, tell us. We need your feedback. We want your involvement in anything and everything going forward. So, with that, thank you again for being here today. I'm going to turn the podium over to Peggy Hill.
And just to add to what John said, I do thank the board of directors in the past, and the board of directors this year have worked tremendously hard. As you can tell with the new building, and I appreciate John and his leadership that he has shown this year. We have a great team in place for you, and we expect to see a lot more good things coming out of this good team for you. We're excited today to have our first professional development day in the new facility. As you know, we've been waiting on this day for 8 months. It took us almost 8 months to get the building complete, but it was well worth every minute. Um, and all the sheetrock that was in my hair for every day for 6 months, it was all worth it. But we're just so excited to be able to do this for our members. And it's all about you. Everything we do is about our members, and this is for you. Um, this is just the first day of many types of these programs that we're going to bring to you. You're going to see a very, very great education calendar. Diana, she's done a tremendous job setting up new classes in the new facility, and we're going to tell you about some of those things. Josh is also going to archive this session and all the sessions today on our website. So you'll be able to go back, or your agents will be able to go back and look at the classes if they can't attend this afternoon. We do have a new website coming up, which is one of our uh, communications that we're excited about. We have two things of communication that we do for you to get the word out of everything that's going on in your association in MLS. And one of them is our website. So we have been working on this for over 3 or 4 months, redesigning our website. And Carolina Creative is our website vendor, and he's doing an awesome job. Many of you know Randy Loper. But we're expecting it to be up and running within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll be sending out you a notice. But there will be a place on the website where everything that we do will be archived as far as classes. So at any time, you or your agents can go back and see, look at anything that we've had going on, maybe that you could not attend. So we're real excited about that. The other communication tool that we have is our weekly update. This is our method of getting out again. This is probably the first method of getting out all the information that we need to tell you about, whether it's from local association, MLS, SCR, NAR, LLR, whatever it is that we need to let you know about. And we have only about 30.6% of our members opening this email every Monday. And that's not good. That's about 360 members out of 1,451 members. So we need your help. A lot of times I'll get calls or emails say, well, I didn't know you were doing this or this. And then I'll look back because we can actually look at the stats and see who opens their email.
Oh, the weekly update.
Who doesn't? So, a lot of times I'll say, well, it looks like you didn't open our weekly update and it's been posted there for 4 weeks. So we want your help as brokers in charge to get the word out to our members that, to read those weekly updates because we do take time in putting that information together every week for you. And Diana is great to help me with that. She keeps the education updated and anything from LLR that you need to know about. So if you would help us encourage our agents to open our weekly updates, that will be perfect. I can't believe it's August. We were talking yesterday. Can you believe it's August? Wow, this year has just passed by so quickly. It's been a hot summer, but our membership is hot too. I'm telling you, we've had 345 new members come in since January of this year. In January, we had 1,106 realtors. As of yesterday, we have 1,451 realtors in our association, which is amazing, and we love it. Also, the MLS is way up also. We have like 1,779 members in the multiple listing service, which is the all-time high for MLS, and this was back in 2008 and 9. We had almost a little under 2,000. Bob, you probably remember those in the MLS. And we had over 1,400 members at that time also in the association. So our numbers are back up there as to where they were before. So we're excited about that. We've given you a lot of handouts today, and just to go through a few of those things for you. Before I leave membership, let me just tell you that your association is also the 5th largest association in the state. So I think that says a lot too for us and our membership. If you will, pull out the calendar that we've given you. And this is through the December of the rest of the year. And a couple things I want to highlight for you that's coming. You'll see that we have all kinds of Paragon training. It started back up. Josh will be doing those monthly for your agents. And Diana will start back up on the MCE and the free classes. We have a lot of that coming up between now and the end of the year. The couple things I want to call your attention to on the calendar is at the end of this month, we're going to have the STAR conference in Greenville, and Dave is going to talk about that a little bit more. But that's coming up August 30th and 31st, so highlight that. We hope that some of you will be in Greenville at the conference. On September 14th, we're going to have Realtor Safety Day here. Diana has applied for a grant from NAR.
Have we heard from her?
No, not yet. Okay, but we have applied for a safety grant to put this program together. And we're hoping to have Anderson County Sheriff come in and some deputies and do some participate in the program. So look for that in the weekly as soon as we get it set up. Our next big RPAC event is going to be October the 12th, and Ria's going to tell you about that in a few minutes. But you're going to want to be at this event. It's going to be an oyster roast and barbecue. It's going to be at the farmers market here in Anderson, and I'll let you tell you about that, Ria, in just a few minutes. Our annual meeting is going to be October 19th. Mark that down, and we're going to have it here. We're hoping this is going to work out. We're going to take all these tables out, bring in round tables, and we're thinking, we want to try it at least one time to see how many people we can fit in here. We had over 400 here for the grand opening, so I feel sure we got a couple hundred in here seated at the tables. But we are really excited. We're going to be bringing Mark Cunningham as our speaker, and you're going to be hearing about him in the next few weeks. He's from Denver, and he's amazing, and he will be our guest speaker. So we will be sending you out some more information about Mark. In November, the NAR convention is coming up, and it's going to be in Chicago, so that's not too far away. So I hope some of you will make plans to attend. That's going to be November 2nd through the 5th. If you've never been to a NAR conference, you will be amazed. The caliber of speakers and education classes they have are amazing. and I would love to see some of you attend that one in Chicago. Our next Brokers in Charge meeting is going to be November the 15th, so mark that down, and that's going to be from 10 to noon here. And then we're going to have a Thanksgiving luncheon for you. So you don't want to miss that. And then a Christmas drop-in. I've already gotten a couple calls from brokers asking when ours is going to be because they're already planning their office parties. And ours is going to be December 14th here at the association. So be sure that you have that on your calendar. The next thing I've given you is support numbers, and if you will, just make these available to your agent. These are numbers that people call here all the time. One of our calls are, can you give me the RPR support number? Can you give me Realtor.com? So what we've done is put all the numbers in the sheet that you may need as a reference, and maybe you can share that with all your agents and have it at the front desk so the agents can have access to those numbers. You'll see on here we have Paragon support, we have the general computer support, which is a tech helpline with SCR, RPR, courthouse retrieval system, showing time, state association, zip form, real estate commission, realtor.com, super support, Zillow, any number that you might need, we have put on here for reference. So I hope you'll find that helpful. The next little handout I've given you is features of the Western Upstate MLS. We're putting together a brochure, but this is just the handout that we just started working with. But to show the value of our MLS and what our members get for their fees every month. So when you have time, look through this, share it with your agents. If you have questions about any program that you didn't even know we had, be sure you call and talk to Josh. I'm glad to talk to you about it, or your agents on any of our products or programs through Western Upstate MLS. And we've got a new product. Josh, why don't you come up and tell us about the newest thing that we're getting in on that? If you will, you should have a printout of it. HomeSnap, if you'll pull that out.
I don't know if any of you are familiar with the HomeSnap app that is available to consumers online right now. If you're not familiar with it, they're a company based in Washington, D.C. And they were initially started as an app for consumers where if they were driving down the road, they could click, take a picture of a house, and then it would pop up the public information of it. And so the Washington MLS then decided, hey, that'd be a great feature for the MLS, and they're the ones that kind of started this whole train here that we're on with integrating MLS data for agents within this HomeSnap app. So we signed the agreement yesterday, sent it back. So within probably 60 to 90 days, we're going to be releasing this to every one of you, every agent, every broker here that's a member of the MLS. At no additional charge, you'll be able to download HomeSnap Pro for agents. And from this app, if you're with a client, you'll be able to take a picture of the house, see all the MLS data. They'll actually be integrated, so if they're at a house and they have it on their phone and they snap a picture of the house, they'll get the information from the MLS as well, and any lead that be generated will come directly to you, the agent of the property. Within this app, we're also going to have a feature. They're integrated with Showing Time, so if you use our Showing Time MLS showing call center, you'll be able to schedule showings directly from the app as well. They have a couple of great new features. I'm not going to take too much time, of course. They have a couple of great features available for you where you can chat with agents throughout the app. So if you have a question about the property, you can send a chat message directly to that listing agent, and they'll be able to get that, receive that on the app if they have it downloaded, or through text message if they do not. And you can converse directly with the agent through there. And you're also able, they're using GPS coordinates now with your phone as you use Waze or any of the other GPS apps that are available for that. If you want to actually walk the property lines with your clients, they're integrated with the HomeSnap app where you can actually walk the property lines as well. It picks up your location through the app. So we're really excited to be able to offer this. This is actually going to be a great feature because, as we all know, the Paragon mobile application is a little bit lacking, I guess we should say. So this is actually going to take the place of this for you. So you're going to have access to this where you can email your clients and everything directly from the app, and it comes from directly from you. And so it's going to be a great new feature that we're going to offer. Again, no charge, so we're very excited about the new program.
Thank you, Josh.
No problem.
Josh and I have sat through the webinar, and it is an amazing tool. I think you're going to be happy with it. And again, like Josh said, it's free to use, so it's great. RPR, realtors are soon going to have access to more than 100,000 new home listings on Realtor Property Resource. We are working with RPR to bring them in later in the fall for you to do some training. I'm really amazed at the agents that are using RPR. How many in here have looked at it or used it? Okay, here's some amazing reports that brokers can use and the agents. So we're going to be bringing RPR in to do some more advanced training because I think if we can get our members to look at what's available, they'll be using this product. According to NAR, 64% of new home constructions that were sold this year was through the help of a realtor, new home construction. And so that's why they've taken this initiative to get this new construction site on RPR. So we're really excited about seeing how that's going to work. And they're telling us that later in August the integration should be over and you should be able to go in and pull all the new construction. I gave you a little flyer on RPR. I put this in the weekly update. It comes out monthly. It's just talking points. It's just update on what's going on with RPR. Right now, they're over 100. They're over 166 million residential and commercial properties that are listed there. So when you get a chance to read this, and this will be a good tool for you to use in your weekly sales meetings with your agents also to update them. We also gave you the economic update, the latest copy from the South Carolina Department of Commerce. This is information, and you get an opportunity to look over that. How many of you have taken advantage of Inman News through the State Association, have signed up? How many? Okay, wonderful. There's a flyer in here. This is free for all the agents that are realtors in South Carolina. This is a service from SCR. It's part of your due. And this is one of the greatest things I've done in the last couple of years because it saves you several $100s if you were already getting in the news. But I've given you a flyer on it so that you can see how to go on and get set up on Emma News. And again, it's a free newsletter for you. We've also given you a copy of the Code of Ethics for 2017, and Diana will mention that a little later. Let's see what we have. The next few things that we have in our packet are going to be about our pack. So at this point in the program, I'm going to start to invite Ruth to come up and talk to you about the RPAC. Rhea is the co-chair of RPAC and Legislative for the Western State Association. Her co-chair is Hope Powell. They are doing a tremendous job for us this year, and we really appreciate it.
Good morning. I'm Rhea Smith. I'm your RPAC co-chair. I also serve on the SCR Legislative Committee and Candidate Screening Committee as well, so I can speak to some of that. I want to lead on the foot that we have met a goal. So we have actually exceeded our RPAC investment goal by 120%. So that's excellent to have hit that number before the end of the year. I'll get into more about our goals. I want to speak to some of our wins first before we get into what we're working towards forward. So in 2017, we had 6 bills that SCR backed at the State House. The one you probably heard the most about is the fingerprint background check. That's now going to be in effect. So if you are renewing next year, that's when it starts. You have to do it this year. So if you're 2018 renewal, that's the beginning of this process. It is every 3rd renewal not every single time that you renew. So that's going to be an increase in professional standards. Unfortunate scenario brought us to the table with this bill and got it passed in one legislative session. And considering the session was shorter, it's a 5-month session now, not a 6, it was great to be able to pass a bill on the first try. So that was a huge win for the lobbying team. We also got through the real estate license reciprocity bill. Anybody practice in Georgia? Anybody in the room? So now you have reciprocity with Georgia through this bill. The roads bill was something that we got behind. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the roads bill. That's going to hopefully bring a better quality of life to the state as we improve our road systems. Let's skip forward. We passed a bill on timeshare, resale protections, and also the Hurricane, Earthquake, and Fire Advisory Committee. It has been formed through Act S305. So that's kind of our bills from 2017. In 2018, we have not met as a group yet, the state legislative committee. However, we do have 3 bills that we're looking towards working on. The first being HOA legislation, HOA reform. So that's a very robust bill. Right now, it's kind of the Wild West. I'm sure you guys have had some interesting interactions with HOAs. This would get the HOAs a little more uniform, under control, and accountable to their members. Business license tax standardization is how many people are holding multiple business licenses in multiple municipalities. I know our brokerage does. So this has been a bill that's been unpopular, and we're working to change the narrative around the state. It is a good thing for business when you're paying to multiple municipalities just simply for sticking a sign in the yard and receiving no service from that municipality. There should be a more streamlined approach for industries like ours. So that's going to be an initiative as well. And then the third act we're looking at, S346, the SC Inclusionary Zoning Act. It's going to allow local governments to enforce inclusionary zoning ordinance tools to create more affordable housing throughout the state. So just a trend across the state is we don't have enough affordable housing for our fire and police, teachers, folks that are not, looking at a $300,000 home. So we're looking at what the bigger picture is and how we can help facilitate growth in that area and get these folks into home ownership. So that's kind of our boring bill stuff, but exciting nonetheless that we were able to get that passed. On the national level, flood insurance is set to expire. The National Flood Insurance Program is set to expire September 30th. We had Peggy, Dawn, and David Phillips went to DC and met with Congressman Duncan, and I think we've turned a page with him. According to Peggy, I feel like he's going to be behind the renewal program. Originally, this was something he was vehemently opposed to, or at least taking no official stance on. But because of our lobbying efforts with him, it appears that he's going to back it. So it's a very hectic time in Washington right now, and we were able to get a lot of folks on our side. Hopefully the bill will make it through for renewal before the 30th. So that's just a quick update on flood insurance. From a candidate screening perspective, we are going to have quite a bit of candidate screening next year. It's this election year for many of our congressional seats around the state. We did, by nature of President Trump appointing different folks to different cabinets, we did have to screen this year. We screened for Congressional District 5, which was Mick Mulvaney's seat, and we actually endorsed Ralph Norman, who was the winner of that election and also a Realtor member. So that was a big win for us there. How many of y'all attended the spring event? A lot. I know I see a few faces around the room. We appreciate you coming. That spring event knocked us way over our goal to 120% of the goal. Total year to date, we've raised a little over $37,000. Our goal was a little over 31, so that's outstanding. that's one metric that we are measured on. The other metric is the percentage of members contributed. Right now we have 324 total contributors, and if I heard right, Peggy, we had at least that many join in January. So we're pacing membership growth faster than we are contribution levels for RPAC. So with that being said, because we hit our spring goal number, we wanted to see if we can knock down a little bit on our percentage contributed. So our thought process was, let's just have a party. Let's see if new people that haven't participated in RPAC want to come. I'm not asking you to come and bring your checkbook like I do in the spring where you're ready to buy auction items. I'm simply asking you to pay for a $25 ticket, which will get you oysters and barbecue as well as some beverages. It's going to be a fun-driven event, not a investment event. So if there are folks in your office that have not contributed to RPAC that would be a new contributor this calendar year, we'd love to have them come and attend and know that it's a no-pressure, non-high investing fundraising event. So please join us for that. And can you remind me of our date? I didn't write it down.
October 12th.
October 12th, and that will be at the Farmers Market downtown in Anderson. So if you weren't able to get to the Lighthouse at Lake Keowee, this would be a good option. One other RPAC related event that I'd like to cover in case you guys have agents underneath you that may be interested in this. At our state conference, we're having an RPAC pub crawl. So we'll be hitting 3 different bars in downtown Greenville, which is not that far away. It's a 1970s themed party, so there will be a prize for your best 70s wear. SCR has agreed to give some free tickets to this event to YPNs, so Young Professional Network members. We don't have a formal Young Professional Network. I think there's probably 5 of us that might be able to come together on that. But if you have some folks in your office that are under the 40 mark that may be interested in participating, I'd love for you to let me know. I can get them a ticket for that. It buys them a couple of drinks, gives them a t-shirt, and it's a late night breakfast buffet at the hotel afterwards. So that's just a quick rundown there. And then Peggy, you want me to speak to voters? Was that correct?
Voter registration.
What that is.
We found out that we have like 14% of our members, Rhea, that are not registered
Oh,
today.
here it is.
So,
All right, just a quick rundown of what we've got going on. We've got realtor members, and this is the state number here, 19,656 realtor members in the state of South Carolina. Registered to vote, there's a little over 17,000. So 88.28% of our membership is registered to vote. So if you could take it back to your offices and do a poll and see if there's anybody not registered, we'd love to have 100% of our membership registered to vote. And I think that's kind of all that I had. Oh, just real fast, anybody a major investor in the room? Got David Phillips, Andy's a major investor, and myself and Peggy and John. So we appreciate your commitment to RPAC, and that's all.
thank you, Rhea. Agenda.
Okay. We want to recognize Andy Lee, who's one of our real estate commissioners. Thank you for being here today, Andy. Andy's done an awesome job representing the realtors in South Carolina and all the licensees in South Carolina. And we appreciate all you do for the Real Estate Commission. And now it's my pleasure to introduce another special person here today. We're so honored this year to have the president of the South Carolina Realtors from our association, David Phillips. Let's give him a hand and thank him. An update from the SCR.
several comments on today, and I'm not a big PowerPoint person. I'm not a very big talker either, so I'm going to cut to the chase, tell you what I know, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that. I hear that. Now, Josh, you stand by just in case I need your help.
We got clippers.
Okay, I got my clickers over there. Okay. All right. Rhea handled something that I was going to speak on already, the flood insurance. Who in here has ever dealt with flood insurance issues on a closing? I mean, I thought too, when several years ago, when this first started, I thought, I won't ever deal with that. I'm not near the ocean. But there is a difference. You don't have to be near the ocean. I did not know that the whole Lake Secession was in a flood zone. Did anybody know that? And the reason it is, I've argued the case. The reason it is because they've never done a study on Lake Secession. So instead of saying it's not in a flood zone, they just say it is in a flood zone. It has a dam. All the houses are usually 50 foot up out of the water. So, but anyway, that's what we're dealing with. But a couple of weeks ago, as Rhea mentioned, your FPC, Don Cleveland, and your AE chair, Peggy Hill, and I, and Nick Cremitis, made a trip to Washington, a fast trip. We saw ourselves coming back in the airport. We met ourselves going and coming. But anyway, that was a pretty nice trip. It's good to go, and it's good to come home from that place. But anyway, we had a good trip, had good meetings. We go every year in May, and it's a real busy time there, and there's a lot of people. But the one-on-one that we did with some of the congressmen and senators that day, I think got more accomplished in one day than we can get done in 2 or 3 days in May. And I believe this is going to become a annual thing of certain members going up in later in the year and doing a one-on-one with some of the congressmen and senators. Ken Wingert, your lobbyist in Washington, had it set up, had our meeting set up, so we were right on time. Everywhere we went, we hit the ground running. We got to talk to all of them. We did take Jeff Duncan to dinner, so he was one of them on the fence, but Jeff didn't understand the whole story about it. He didn't want his constituents in his area paying for flood insurance for everybody that owns a second home on the coast, he said. Well, Don and I both had meetings with Rick Atkins, who works for Jeff, and tried to explain it's not just on the coast. And so as we progressed, and that started earlier last year, but in May he was still thinking the same thing. So as we progressed and talked, and Don bent his magic with him and talked to him and several other congressmen, and I think Trey Gowdy and all have converged. After we left the dinner that night, he told us he was on board. So I don't think we have a problem with that. Getting it done in a fast period is the problem with Washington. As Rhea mentioned, you don't get anything done in Washington fast, but go on vacation. And they can do that pretty fast. But they said if they don't get it reauthorized completely, it will probably be reauthorized for a 5-year extension. So, we'll take what we can get at this point, but it's better than not having it at all. So that's where that stands. I think we're okay on that. So if you haven't dealt with flood insurance, you will sooner or later if you stay in this business. Keep your eye out for a call to action from RPAC on that. But there's been a lot of work that's gone into that. I mean, I remember before the Obama administration, they kicked this can down the road then. So you can imagine how long that can has been laying there on the side of the road. So anyway, a lot of work in the meantime. And it was not even on Washington's radar. So they were going to let that expire. We were going to have closings that right up to a day or two before, and they need to escrow this stuff in their HUD, and if it was not, they were not able to get a price for it, you were not going to have closing. So anyway, the staff did a great job on that. Next, you're going to find out today if you stay long enough, but your SCR Residential Forums Chair, Liz Lodeholt, and the 2017 SCR Forums Committee Chairman, proposed some changes to the SCR 310 form, which is subject to finance contract form, as well as a SCR 311 due diligence addendum, SCR 525 repair addendum, SCR 391 additional clause for addendum and amendment, and the LLR residential property disclosure form. Now, these are the changes that we as an executive committee agreed on, but some of us that were at the meeting, there were a lot more changes that come up that did not make it through the executive committee. So these are just some changes that we felt like should be done, but you can't take but so much change at one time. It'll overload your brain. But anyway, some of it's I'm not talking about you, only us. Anyway, the annual conference was mentioned, and this is in Greenville, and we all know how nice Greenville is now. So if you're going to go to an annual conference, you need to try to make that. There's over 300 realtors already registered. You can still sign up, and it's going to be really nice. There is a broker deal. I don't know if you know about that, but I will tell you, if you'll buy, let's say SCR continues to offer special broker pricing for annual conference and expo, you can receive save $100 per ticket by registering your agents for broker package of 5. And if you register more from 5 up to 10, it's $125 savings. So that's pretty good. And you can learn a lot from some of these conferences. I know over the past, it kind of got redundant and you saw the same thing, but they're trying to change this up and get it where you do learn something. So try to make that if you can. With it being close, it's not 4 or 5 hours away. It's right in our backyard. So if you're going to go to one, this is the one to go to. And I'm president for you, so you can come to that just to see me on my way out. Okay, you can see me right away. No. Just joking. Broker Summit too. This is also something that I have enjoyed, and I think you guys will too. This is a working lunch broker summit. That is something that you'll enjoy. Steve Murray of Real Trends will be our speaker that day. He's going to speak of topics on digital marketing, consulting, and web hosting contracts. We'll have a question and answer session to dive deeper into topics like that. So that is October 23rd of this year. So you'll enjoy that, I think. So mark your calendar for that. If you're not signed up for the broker Facebook group, you need to do that. You can go to facebook.com and we can give you this, but /groups/SCR brokers, and you can sign up for that and you can get constant updates. And as they say, these are broker benefits that you're paying for and you get a lot for your buck, but bang for your buck. But if you're not using them, they're not much of a benefit. So you need to dive into that and use any of those things. Not using them, losing out. To piggyback on what Rhea said about RPAC, last year we missed the Triple Crown Award that SCR has never won, and we missed it on participation. This year we've got the participation, but now we're a little low on the funds. So, but not very much. We've got our major donors. But we need to pick up the pace on the fund. So if you haven't donated to RPAC, please do so. And it does make a big difference. They do know who we are. So if we go see these people, RPAC is in the back of their minds. So one other thing here. I'm almost done. And then I will let you go back to Peggy. I think that is it. I just wanted to say, though, I know we always talk about what a great job the association's doing. This association is second to none, and I say that because I'm a member and have been a member forever. But it just does a great job. I'm proud of this facility, and proud it was done this year, too. And so it just I'll remember this because of that always. But I'm going to tell you, too, your state association is not sitting in Columbia on their laurels either. They are really working. You got some great lobbyists there. Nick and the staff there, he had a big turnover a couple of years ago on staff, and and it wasn't bad turnover. It was just some got married and moved away and all, but he changed like 4 lobbyists in a year, and he had a lot of turnover. So to keep things running as well as he did a great job. But your state association's really working hard for you and keeping up with things that you and I, while we're selling real estate, don't even know that this stuff's going on unless they bring it to us. So always remember they're working for you. The local associations, same way, working for you all the time, keeping up with all the changes. And anything you need to know, they will let you know. So you can sleep easy on that. But business is good, and I think it's all because of me. But I'll take the credit. If it was not good, I would have to take the blame. Thank you very much.
Again, you can tell he's doing a great job representing us in Columbia, and we appreciate him. We're going to take a little break. Let's come back at 10 after. There's coffee and refreshments in the kitchen.
You need a break,
I'm doing well. How are you doing? Good to see you.
We're all over.
Yeah, I know. Used to be that we knew absolutely everybody. Remember that?
I don't know any of them.
I know. Hey, Rich. Yes.
Okay, we ready to get started back? If you will pull out your broker update, this will be the last little handout that you have that Diana has prepared for you. I do want to mention at 11:30 we're going to have lunch, and we invite all of you to stay. We're actually having Olive Garden come in today, bringing lasagna and all the trimmings for you. And yes, we know they were robbed yesterday, but we called this morning to make sure they did not get our lasagna. So we're all clear. So we're excited about that. So we do hope you'll stay and enjoy that with us today. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the most amazing education director in the country. She is such a well-known, sought-out instructor all over the country, and we are so fortunate to have her as our education director. Our members love Diana Brothers, don't you? Yes. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Diana for all she does for our local association and all she does for the brokers and for the agents. There's so much of her personal time that goes into this position. She helps brokers with their license law reviews. She did that the first of the year. She had brokers working from day to night with her. All that's on her own time. So we want to say thank you, Diana, for always giving back to our members. She's always there. Many of our agents email her. She also runs our online courses. So during CE season, at the end of June, she was online every night to about 12 or 1 o'clock because she was texting me and telling me. And she just does a fabulous job. So welcome, Diana Brothers.
Thank you, Peggy, and it's my pleasure not only to be affiliated with this association, but to be here today to be able to give you your legal and legislative update. Peggy was mentioning about our online courses. We had about 780 people who took classes online completely. And I have recertified 3 classes, and we've written 2 new online classes for you as well. One to work with our commercial brokers a little closer and get out of the introductory phase of commercial. And then another one we're writing now on negotiating in a multiple offer market, which I know that many of you have been in, and it's been very hard for you to be able to get offers through. And there's good things and bad things about a multiple offer market, and sometimes the seller will work oppositional to their own best interest by taking the highest price offer without thinking about appraisal and contingencies and closing dates and et cetera. So our job really turns around when we're in a multiple offer market, and I thought it would be very timely for us to have a course available for you. We'll be doing it live and online for you in the fall. If you'll take a look at your little broker update, a little bit on the front of it is repetitive to what Rhea had to say, but one of the major things and the accomplishments that we had this year was to get that criminal background check bill through. And SCR did a wonderful job on that. You know how you hear people say it was a last minute approval thing? I mean, really, last minute. The last minute at 4:59 p.m. on the last day of the legislation was when this bill got passed. So that tells you that they stayed there until they closed the doors trying to get it done. And it was very important to get this through. And it's sad that it got passed after having been asked for years and years and years. It got passed because of the tragic situation that came about with Spartanburg agent. And so that just brought it to the forefront. And frankly, I think that it changed the minds of a lot of people as to whether or not that criminal background check should be in place. We as real estate agents and as realtors have an exalted position with the public. We can go into their property when they are not at home. And because of that, we need to hold ourselves to the highest of standards. But there also are people that maybe have messed up in the meantime. They might have come through with good intentions but had issues, and those will be uncovered then with the criminal background checks. So the bill was signed into law, and it's going to, as Rhea said, provide fingerprinting every 6 years. It also gives the Real Estate Commission authority to revoke or deny a license if an applicant fails to disclose any civil judgments that they had based on grounds of fraud, misrepresentation, and deceit. So even if they did not have a crime in their history, but they had civil judgments that were on their record because of fraud. We don't want people who have engaged in fraud, misrepresentation, and deceit. So those will be looked at as well. One of the things about the previous law is that it had no teeth in it when the Real Estate Commission heard about people committing acts that were not within the law. If you take a look at your new license law, it covers about everything that you could ever deal with and makes that available for them to revoke or deny a license as well. Now, the real thing that's going to have to come up is, what do you do about people that are uncovered on the first criminal background check? It's uncovered that they lied on their application. Because the number one thing that you can lose your license for in the new license law, the first thing on conduct and redress, is you misrepresented something on your application. So my understanding is that a task force has been formed, and they are going to look at what happens when it's uncovered that people were not truthful. And I can just give you a personal scenario. When I was on the Real Estate Commission for several years, we had maybe a handful of people who came in with their real estate application and said, I'm here to defend myself. I had a problem when I was a teen, or, I broke into a car and, went to jail over it or whatever, but I've been a good person since then. We had maybe a handful. Now that criminal background checks are required on entry for new agents, people upgrading, and et cetera, they're so backed up until how long? 2 years. Okay, here's the question, the thought question. Did people just start committing crimes? Or were there lots of people who were not truthful when they were on the honor system? And this will bring the untruthful people out. And so the Real Estate Commission is going to have to decide what they're going to do about people who were not truthful the first time. So if any of you need to write a note to the Real Estate Commission now, it'd be a good time. On Bill 3861 was brought about in order to regain our reciprocity with Georgia. What it did was to say that if a state recognizes us for reciprocity, we will recognize them for reciprocity as well. And it was critical that we have that relationship with Georgia, and this bill passed with very little opposition at all. The Resale Protection Bill 3647 addressed abuses of consumers in resale of timeshare. There are a lot of deceptive business practices from people who advertise, I'll sell your timeshare for you. There's no contract. Many times there's no escrowing of money, and it's been subject to a lot of abuse. So this bill will help with that. And then the Hurricane, Earthquake, and Fire Advisory Committee bill was signed into law. And what that does is actually appoints an advisory committee to address the mitigation of property issues and address a strategy for reducing liability there. On the next page, if you downloaded your handout and have it in the room, the Appraisal Management Company Registration Act was signed into law. It requires registration of all the entities acting as appraisal management companies. Remember that the Dodd-Frank Act required the states to put this into place. I do want to mention that on the federal level, there is a move to replace the Dodd-Frank Act with a different bill, and that different bill would replace and do away with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Personally, Dodd-Frank, I think, has harmed the industry in a lot of ways. Many times legislation comes with unintended consequences. Good ideas and good intentions turn into bad implementation efforts many times. And a lot of that's what happened with Dodd-Frank. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is one of the most onerous agencies that has ever been formed because they're basically unregulated. And because of that, they have sent out a tremendous number of fines. I think their website says 16 billion with the B fines since they got started. And so the new legislation that's being considered in DC would actually do away with Dodd-Frank, which would do away with Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I think the bill is named the Financial Freedom Act. Is that right, Rhea, David? Financial Freedom Act, I think, is going to work out. Updates and this bill then updated and revised the laws govern appraisers to bring South Carolina into compliance with federal standards, to include greater separation between the banks and those people who extend loans on value. So for 2018, keep your eye on that HOA legislation. I mean, when you add some of this up, we're governed so tightly when we are holding funds that belong to consumers as real estate licensees. But on the other hand, we don't hold nearly as much money as an HOA manager would. I think about my little community of maybe 80 homes, and it's not a lot of money. But if you go to maybe a HOA management company that manages 10 projects along the coast with 100 units each, and they're managing 1,000 projects at $500 a month, and they're not even required to have an escrow account. And so this HOA bill will do a couple of things. First, it's going to require the HOAs to record their governing documents with the clerk of court. This is one of the best things that I've seen in a long time. And David, please congratulate the SCR lobbying staff on getting that piece through, because many of the HOAs are charging exorbitant fees to folks who need a copy of the documents in order to give to a potential buyer to make sure that they're the latest. Even when I sold my townhouse last year, I had to chase my HOA professional company to get a copy of the most recent documents. Then I had to order that through a third-party vendor, and it cost me $75. I fussed about that, but then I hear at the beach, some places are charging $10 a page for HOA documents. So if they're recorded with the clerk of court, then we'll be able to go and get the latest of those documents. It will give the ability to resolve financial disputes between the HOA and owners to go to magistrate's court with that now, and it will create an HOA ombudsman program. I hope you know that we have an ombudsman program here as well. I'm a certified dispute resolution specialist. In 2016, NAR required all local associations to have that ombudsman program in place. It's about the same thing as the mediation program. Mediation is for money, ombudsman is for behavior. I've not had anybody who wanted me to ombud yet, but hey, I was a 7th grade counselor, so I think I can do it. They come along. This bill also will require 48-hour notice of homeowners to the homeowners prior to increasing the HOA fees. It'll add notice to the disclosure statement as well, with a checkbox on the current form to notify the buyer that the property is subject to an HOA. Another thing that Rhea mentioned is the business license tax standardization. And as she said as well, there's going to be a lot of opposition to this, mainly through your municipal associations who want to maintain control of what they charge. On the South Carolina Inclusionary Zoning Act, there's pros and cons to that. Everyone, including me and all of you, want more affordable housing. This act would allow local governments to enforce zoning ordinances as a way to create affordable housing. I've watched it in Greenville County as it's been reported by their legislative committee there. And the bills that are going through will say to developers, you're asking for permission to do 100 $400,000 homes. As part of that, you're going to have to do 20 $80,000 homes. That's inclusionary zoning, which requires them to include affordable housing in new developments. So you just have to put your mind to the pros and cons of that. Sometimes good intention comes with unintended consequences. It's been very interesting to see the shift. Our major problem right now is no entry level housing, and the government has been pushing for more funding for buyers of entry level housing. I think we need to push for more incentives to developers to build entry level housing. We have lots of entry level buyers right now. We just have nothing to put them in. And so we kind of need to reverse our thinking and shift back thinking on that. I've been a builder developer before, and mainly it's fees and regulations that keep affordability low. I heard someone say that in Greenville County, for every new build, there's over $60,000 built into that new build in regulations and enforcement. So we just have to keep a lid on that as well. Federal issues, of course, flood insurance, as everyone mentioned. One of the I guess the spokespersons against flood insurance many times say, well, we don't want to pay for multi-million-dollar homeowners on the coast. Respectfully, if you go to the National Flood Insurance Program website, you will see that I am 100% correct when I tell you flood insurance on residential property is capped at $250,000. I doubt that there is $1 million property on the coast that would take the flood insurance that's capped at $250,000. Residential capped at $250,000, commercials capped at $500,000. Million-dollar, multi-million-dollar properties are generally insured, say, with someone like Lloyd's of London, who would insure the entire property. So the argument that people in Anderson would be paying for multi-million-dollar properties in Tampa doesn't, quote, hold water. Oh no, it's about flood insurance, but doesn't hold water. So make sure that if you are going to take a stand one way or another, that you really get the facts straight, and the best place to find that is your talking points at National Flood Insurance website, nfip.gov. Now, there's an issue that I need to address, and I'm speaking to our Realtor members. Many of you are involved in chat rooms on the internet. Many of those are sites where like-minded agents in different companies come together, talk about best practices, and etc. Lately, many of those chats have started talking about fees. I monitor a lot of them I watch Judge Judy, and whenever Judge Judy goes off on the commercial, I go to a chat room, take a look at what people are talking about, and etc. In many of the chat rooms, the discussion has turned to, why is someone offering me this limited amount through MLS, and what can we do to stop that? We can't do anything to stop that. I don't know how many of you remember when the DOJ showed up in Anderson and Greenville and Spartanburg and Aiken and Columbia and Charleston and etc. But that was a really hard time for Realtor members. You have to be extremely careful when you are talking with a competitor about two things. Don't discuss prices with competitors. If you have a problem with what someone has offered you through the MLS, call that person who's made that offer and talk to them. Don't post it to a chat room and say, what can we do to increase our fees or to keep someone from offering us less than the, quote, standard fee. And these are the words that are being used, and that is like throwing gasoline on the fire of the Department of Justice. Also, be very careful when you are with another competitor and you are discussing a third competitor. Even though you are not intending to boycott, that is considered a group boycott just to have the discussion. It's called a per se violation under the law. So if someone asks you what you think about what another brokerage is doing, just tell them that you don't worry about other people. You have enough trouble worrying about what your own brokerage is doing and keeping up with changes. So the criminal background checks in place, license reciprocity with Georgia in place, timeshare protection in place, a hurricane, earthquake, and fire committee established, appraisal management company act, all of these. Please just take time to send a note to SCR and thank them and their lobbying staff for all the hard work they did this year. The 2018 legislation that they'll be dealing with is the HOA bills, business license tax standardization, the Inclusionary Zoning Act, and the federal issues that we personally need to handle are taking a look at the calls to action that will be coming down with flood insurance and the antitrust issues. Just stay away from those. On the flood insurance, when they let it expire last time, and I think that was maybe 5 years ago, the chatter says that 1,400 closings a day did not happen. A day. Many mortgages, particularly those where the property is located in an A or a V zone, are required to have flood insurance on them. And the flood insurance is offered only through the federal government and some outside privatized companies on the high-end area. So if you're closing something that is required by the mortgage company to have flood insurance on it, and flood insurance is not available, then your closing is not going to happen. I know, and it's not just things that are, quote, on water. Again, I'll take you back to my own little personal situation. I had a townhouse in Greenville that down one side of the townhouse complex ran Rocky Creek. I watched a property go under contract 4 times until they found a cash buyer for that property. All 4 times it fell out over flood insurance. And of course, I lived there for 10 years, and I never saw the water even come close to cresting over the top. But flood insurance will stop a lot of closings or lack of, and we have to be very careful and involved with that. Now, Andy's already been recognized, but I want to say something about Andy. Besides considering him my friend, I want to let you know that you have one of the most proactive real estate commissioners that has ever been on the real estate commission. Several of the seats have changed out over the past few years, and we are very fortunate not only to have Andy there, but for him to take the stance that he does, particularly in, I'm going to say, the punishment area of seeing what people have done in the past, seeing how they have violated the law, and not being afraid to stand up and say, we require you to comply, and here's the punishment that you do not. So please take a moment and thank Andy for me. Well, our real estate commission now is back up to where we were in 2006 and 7 almost. They say that they are increasing the numbers of real estate licensees by about 400 a month. Right now, their total licensees of around 48,000. The Real Estate Commission will be meeting next Wednesday. I'll be there on your behalf to bring back the information to put in the weekly that you need to know from that. Some recent rulings that came into place and decisions that you may or may not know about. And I do encourage you to read the minutes of the Real Estate Commission that are online each month. First of all, transaction brokerage is your default position, period. Period. Everybody starts out as a transaction broker, giving customer service to the consumer, and then some people move that person from customer to client. And there's no transaction brokerage agreement required unless you're going to have the consumer obligated to you in some way. Customers don't have to sign anything, do they? They don't have to hire anybody. They can choose to get basic service. And that's what transaction brokerage is. It's that you are providing customer service to the consumer. Now, let's take this example. Say that you are a site sale agent and you're representing that builder, and a customer pulls up on the lot, and you say, well, before I can show you some properties, you have to sign something. Do you think they would? Because they don't have to do anything, do they? No. So a transaction brokerage agreement is not required to provide customer service. No agreement is required to provide customer service unless you want that customer obligated to you. Let me give you an example of that. I'm working with a buyer customer, hadn't hired me. The buyer customer wants to see a for sale by owner home. Well, I'm going to want one of them to see that I get paid. So I need one of them to be obligated for payment. I could move one of them from customer to client if I wanted to, but that increases my risk, and maybe they didn't want to hire me. But without hiring me, can they pay me? Sure, I just have to have an agreement. Remember that the purpose of the Real Estate Commission is to protect the public. So if the public is going to be bound to you in any way, to pay you, to work exclusively with you, or whatever, then an agreement is required for transaction brokerage. Other than that, no agreement is required. The piece about transaction brokerage that is different from customer service as you have known it in the past is that transaction brokerage customer service is, quote, hybridized. It comes with a side order of confidentiality. Now, remember, purpose of the Real Estate Commission and the license law to protect the public. Who's ever been out to make a listing presentation, say, and the seller who hasn't hired you yet spill the beans about what they could do, their motivation, this is why I'm moving, and then you didn't get the listing for whatever reason, and you were burdened with that information. And if your luck is like most others, then you would have a buyer client who would be interested in that property that was listed by another company now. You're carrying this confidential information, and dollar to a donut, your buyer client will turn to you and say, what do you think the seller would take, and why is he moving? It puts you in a real bad position. But let's go back. Why did the seller tell you all that to start with? Because you had not told them not to. See, the previous law and this law says at first substantive contact, which is now defined, you will give them a meaningful explanation of agency. That's the piece we weren't doing. Particularly with sellers. We were doing better with buyers, but particularly with sellers. So sellers would then misinterpret the relationship and start telling us price, motivation, what they could do, and etc. And they were not our clients yet. Under the new law, that information will remain confidential. Price, terms, motivation is the hybridization of customer service under transaction brokerage, and it comes with confidentiality automatically unless they waive it. That's the reason I call it a side order. So if I go to Carrabba's to eat, and I don't want the pasta, I mean, I don't know why I'd go to an Italian restaurant and not want the pasta, but I don't want the pasta. Can I say to them, don't bring me the side order of pasta? My call, right? Can a consumer say, yes, you can tell them that I'm highly motivated because my daughter is ill and we have to move to Atlanta? Can a consumer say that? So they can waive the confidentiality, but if they're going to do that, please get them to do that in writing, because they may not recall later that they told you that you could tell people about their motivation. So there's a sample transaction brokerage agreement at the Real Estate Commission website, and then there are 2 or 3 transaction brokerage agreement at SCR on zip forms. For those of you who are staying or tuning in this afternoon, we'll go over those forms as well. One of the forms that is not being used as mandated. See, a mandated form will have the LLR logo up in the corner. And when you see that LLR logo on a form, you cannot make any changes to that form at all. One of the mandated forms under your new license law is the offer rejection form. An offer rejection form is required if the seller returns an offer without acceptance or counter. Period. Period. It's required every time. So let's say that I'm a listing agent and I get 5 offers on a property. And seller says, use form 312 from SCR, which is your multiple offer form, and return all of them for highest and best. Might a seller say that? Return all 5 for highest and best. Then has the seller rejected all 5 offers? Yes, he did not counter, he did not accept, so that means he rejected. So you'll do 5 312s and 5 offer rejection forms. The offer rejection form does not require a seller signature. Remember that the Real Estate Commission only regulates us as licensees. They cannot make a consumer sign anything. So the law says that the real estate licensee will complete the offer rejection form anytime a seller returns an offer without counter. Period. Now let me stop for either online questions or questions that we have from the room about your offer rejection form. The offer rejection form, thank you for the question, John. The offer rejection form does not have a space for the seller to sign it. You could ask the seller if they wanted to initial it and date it or sign it just to keep for your files, but it has no line on for the seller to sign. This is for the person who presented the offer to the seller to affirm that they did present that offer and the seller returned it without counter. If you want to be really, really careful, you could have the seller write rejected on the front of the written offer, date that and have that in your files in case you're ever challenged. Understand that the reason forms are mandated are because some people don't comply. It's like the reason that we have speed limits. I don't know how fast I really would go if there were no speed limit. How many of you speed when you're not even in a hurry? It's just a natural way of driving, right? So you're breaking the law, but as long as you don't get caught, it really didn't matter, right? But you were all still breaking the law. Same thing with the offer rejection form. Present all offers in writing until closing, period. If the seller does not deal with one of those offers, the buyer or buyer's agent is required to receive an offer rejection form in a timely manner. In a timely manner should be in about the same time that you would present a counteroffer. They need to know that the offer was presented and rejected. Question?
Offers have an expiration date on them, expiration date time. Is an offer rejection form required to expire?
Yes, that's a great question, and let me repeat it. The question is, when an offer expires without a seller countering or accepting it, then the offer was rejected. It was rejected through expiration. The seller just didn't deal with it. Now, if you are negligent and don't present the offer before expiration, then that's a whole new issue of lack of diligence in failure to present an offer. So when an offer expires before presentation, that can be seen as a violation of the license law and your code of ethics that says that you present all offers in a timely manner. And certainly before expiration would be in a timely manner. The law does not address it specifically, and I teach risk management for you. So when the law does not state something specifically, take the most narrow path that you can take and do that form. Answer your question? Yeah. Now, interesting that question came up because are there people who don't present offers in a timely manner? Let's go to a multiple offer market. Many people will say, I'd like to hold all the offers and present them all at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, if offer number 2 expires at 8 o'clock tonight, you are required by license law to present that offer in a timely manner. And if you hold it until it expires and you're presenting a dead offer, then you could possibly be in a license law violation situation, particularly when the seller says you let this die and the buyer went on and bought something else. There is no number for your offer rejection form. That's on, you have it, it's provided by your real estate commission, but flip through zip forms, and LLR did not put a number on their form. Zip forms may have some numbers on that offer rejection form. So just go to SCR, look through your zip form list, and see if they have numbered that form for you. And thank you for that online question. Another recent ruling has to do with disbursement of trust funds. There's been a lot of problems in Form 310 that said the seller had to file a lawsuit and buyer had to respond and yada, yada, yada. Part of what we're going to look at this afternoon is a change to your earnest money section on Form 310, which is your residential sales contract. And I'm happy to report to you, and I hope you can come back this afternoon, or at least tune in this afternoon, that we are back to the future on the disbursement of trust funds. Your revised Form 310 takes it back to buyer and seller sign a release if trust funds are disputed. Without that, you can file an interpleader, they can take each other to court, or they can go to mediation, but that's the end of it. Okay. Back to the future, back to where we started, to the simplest way that is in 100% strict compliance with your license law. So the mandatory forms and language from LLR, we're still in the LLR section, are your disclosure of brokerage relationships form, previously called agency disclosure. Okay, here's a quick test question. Why is the form no longer called agency disclosure form? Come on, Carol Ann, you got it right. Because transaction brokerage is not an agency relationship. So when our license law changed and we were able to get transaction brokerage, quote, non-agency, then we had to have a new form. Reads pretty much like your other one. The best thing about that form is that it does not fold over, and you can make good copies without having to send a page of instructions with it to the consumer. So disclosure of brokerage relationship is given to everyone at first substantive contact. And the beauty of your new license law is that it has definitions, particularly of substantive contact. So bring those things into your company training. I'd recommend that you take one of these forms a week, take a look at what it says about it in license law, go over that particular form. In addition, your offer rejection form is mandatory, and there's mandatory language for your consumer contracts, your listing agreements, your buyer agency agreements. If you're using the representation agreements provided by SCR through zip forms, you can be assured that the mandatory language is in those. But let's say that you are a commercial practitioner and you use a different listing agreement. There's mandatory language that must be in those agreements. In addition, your sales contracts, whether residential or commercial, must have an acknowledgement by the consumer that says whether the consumer received customer or client service. That's a protection for you, so that someone can't come back later and say, well, I thought I was a client and she was advising me, when you never agreed to do that. So your sales agreements must have an acknowledgement from the consumer as to whether they received customer or client service. And then LLR provided a sample transaction brokerage agreement, a real straightforward, plain one-page agreement right on their website. Those are your mandatory forms. The transaction brokerage agreement is separated on the screen because it is not a mandatory document unless what? Perfect, unless you're going to have the consumer obligated to you in some way. At a recent meeting of the Real Estate Commission, the advice attorney was asked whether or not the licensees needed to go back and give the brokerage relationship form to all of their clients. And they also stated that The advice attorney said it was appropriate to get updated listing and buyer agency agreements that reflect the mandatory language we talked about in your license law changes. One of the interesting things that was said when they said, should we go back and do disclosure of brokerage relationships form with everyone? And the answer was yes. The question came from the peanut gallery where I was sitting. Do we need to go back and do new listing agreements and buyer agency agreements? And the response was, why would you not? Make sense? So it'll give you a time to go back and talk to your seller clients and talk to your buyer clients about this. Go ahead, sorry, Francis. Yeah, the question is, on site is, if you have already done that with all of your past clients, maybe in compliance with the license law as soon as it changed, do you need to go back and do that? No. These are for people who, at this point in time, we're in the 8th month of license law. These are for people who have agreements that were entered into prior to January 1st, because starting on January 1st, you should have been using the new forms that would have all that. Great question, and thanks for asking. All right, so everybody has to have an office policy update. Let's see the hands of those of you as brokers in charge who have updated your office policy. I think that's just about everyone in the room. For those of you who have not, there is a list over on 2 pages of what has to be in your office policy, and I'll run through that very quickly, but I would like for all of you to audit your own office policies. If you are audited by the Real Estate Commission, or if a compliance officer comes, one of the first things they're going to ask you is, let me see your office policy on agency and fair housing. And I really would love for you to move that to the very front of your policy manual so that you have everything that the investigator or inspector might want to see right up front, and you don't have to go through flipping through to page 34, 35 on it. SCR has 2 policies available for you, and they are template policies. What does that mean when you say they're template? It means you got to deal with them. You can't just pick them up and put them on the shelf. You need to make them your policies. And the 114-page policy has been whittled down to about 30 to 40 pages. And then on the other side, you have a very short policy for people like me that are single practitioners. Does anyone have a limited function referral office where your policy is, we just place referrals, we don't represent buyers or sellers? If you do have that, some larger companies have it as a sister company or a child, then you must have an office policy for that company as well. So even if you broker and charge more than one company, remember that every company has to have their own individual office policy. There are new rules on the delivery of earnest money to the broker in charge, no new rules on the deposit of earnest money. But remember, the broker in charge is considered a trustee of the public and is entrusted to hold money. A licensee, your associated licensees, are not entrusted to hold money. And a very bad habit had developed, which was many brokers in charge were allowing the associated licensees to, quote, hold the trust funds while they worked the offer. That's never been allowed, but it was a habit that was on the street. Your new license law is very clear. Once your associated licensees pick up funds that belong to the public, trust funds, they must bring them to you by the next business day. That's as long as they can hold them. And that will help you in a lot of ways to get a handle on what your associated licensees are working and if they need any help getting those offers turned to contract and et cetera. One of the biggest shifts that we have seen with trust funds over the past year has been that many brokerages have completely shut down their trust account and they're letting a third party, many times the closing attorney, hold those trust funds. That's fine as well. And the second shift is that many of the contracts are being written saying that you'll pick up the trust funds once the buyer and seller have agreed to the terms of the agreement. And that means they could pick up the executed contract and the trust funds and bring all of that to you at the same time. However, remember, if they receive an offer that has trust funds attached to it, they cannot hold those trust funds. Only the broker in charge is a trustee of the public and allowed to hold those funds prior to deposit. Any questions about that, off-site or on? Pretty straightforward, just need to get a handle on it, okay? All right, that is your delivery of earnest money to your broker in charge from the Real Estate Commission. I mentioned to you that the offer rejection form is not being used. Now, I tried to make it real simple for you, and that is on the next page. It says, when an offer is presented to a seller, one of 3 documents, highlight the word documents for me, one of 3 documents must be returned to the buyer in a timely manner. Hopefully, we will have a written acceptance of the offer. If you don't get the written acceptance, the next best thing would be a written counter. Circle the word written. If you don't get any of those 2 things, you should receive an offer rejection form. So when an offer is presented, this is license law, not Realtor Code of Ethics, not MLS rules. This is the law. One of 3 things comes back to the buyer: an accepted offer in writing, a written counter offer, or an offer rejection form. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay. Now, what happens if you are the buyer's agent and you don't get the offer rejection form? You don't hear anything. What would you do? First, I'm going to try to call the other agent and say, what happened to my offer? She might say seller didn't like it. Then I would say, please send over an offer rejection form for my files. Expect to hear, huh? What's that? Well, it's mandatory, and just get your citation out of license law, throw the law on. Say it says in 4057-137 C2B. I just made that citation up, okay? But now, if a person doesn't know that they have to do the form, they won't know that I made up the citation either. So, whatever you say there will work. And then if you don't get it, your broker in charge, you as broker in charge, could call their broker in charge, right? And then in the past, when I've actively practiced, I've had to say this before. It's up to you whether I make the next phone call or not. In other words, give me what the law says that you have to give me, or else you're going to force me to make the next phone call, because I need this for my buyer to show that the offer was actually presented and the seller did not deal with that offer. He returned it without counter. So 3 things. An offer is presented in a timely manner until closing. When an offer is presented, one of 3 things have to be given back to the buyer: written acceptance, written counter offer, or offer rejection form. Now, the question came up yesterday. Okay, so we presented an offer, and the seller's agent sent me a text back saying the seller says he'll take $525 if they can close by September the 15th. Is that a written counter offer? The answer is no. The offer is between buyer and seller. Can a listing agent or a buyer's agent bind their client? The law says that when changes or modifications are made to an offer, they are initialed and dated by the parties to the contract prior to going forward. Initialed and dated by the parties to the contract. We could reverse that and make it work by having the seller make the counteroffer, and then we attach it to the email because the seller has actually signed and initialed and dated that counteroffer. But chatter from one brokerage to another brokerage about what somebody might do at some time is outside the law. Always has been, so just work with your associated licensees on cleaning that up. The residential property condition disclosure statement instructions were revised. It's a really good piece that will limit your liability. The instructions just say that it removed the word should have known, because your new license law removes should have known and holds you to actual knowledge. So be sure to review that and make sure that your associated licensees are using the updated form that's available on the Real Estate Commission website, and I have the address there. And numerous complaints have been filed. I hear, Andy, hundreds of complaints have been filed about team names. It has backlogged the system, hundreds. And the system's moving very slowly right now on investigations. If you allow teams, remember that has to be in your office policy. Remember that under the law, you cannot shift the responsibility for team activity to a team leader or team member. And the teams cannot use the words real estate or realty or in their team advertising. They will call themselves Diana Brothers Team, not Diana Brothers Real Estate. Remember, purpose of the license law, protect the consumer. When the consumer sees Diana Brothers Real Estate, the consumer might think that that is a real estate brokerage company as opposed to a team inside the brokerage. And the other piece in license law regarding teams is that the company name must be conspicuously displayed in all of the team advertising, which includes signs, which includes websites, which includes social media postings. So your company name must be in all advertising, whether it's advertising the team, whether it's advertising an individual licensee, whether it's advertising property. All of the listings belong to the company. All of the buyer clients belong to the company, and the team members represent the company. The license law says your name must be conspicuous. Any questions online or offline about LLR update? I know I'm standing between you and lunch, so let's go. All right, your SCR update. Remember that the updated forms are going to be effective on September the 1st. They will be rolled out at the convention. They will be on zip forms. This afternoon, we're going to go over the changes that have already been approved to your forms, major changes to 310 under repair procedure, as well as under dealing with CO 100s and the earnest money that I've mentioned. At the convention, the board of directors will be presented with some proposed changes that they will vote on. David, I'm thinking that day on those proposed changes, and those are honestly very minor tweakings that will come up, but look for the forms to change now and then to have some minor tweakings later. So as soon as we get through this, and everything's being recorded today, so you could go back over the forms. If you can't be here this afternoon, you can assign them to go through the forms update that we're going to do. Your new forms that you have from SCR, one of the things that was required by license law, but the Real Estate Commission was not required to provide the document, is called multiple buyer client form. This is it's required that you have a form, but the form itself was not put forth by the Real Estate Commission. You see the difference in the offer rejection form that has their logo on the side that they put out that everybody has to be used in that language. There's a big difference in saying, and you have to have a multiple buyer client disclosure form in place when an individual licensee has 2 buyer clients in a single transaction. Not when your company has 2 buyer clients. When an individual licensee has 2 buyer clients that are competing for one property, both of those buyer clients must be given a disclosure that I have another buyer client personally that's competing with you, so I will not be telling you what their negotiating strategy is. And of course, I will not be sharing yours with them as well. If they have a problem with it, go straight to your broker in charge. Your broker in charge would then look probably at designating someone to work through this transaction, but make sure that your associated licensees know that that is in the law. They have to do it when they have multiple buyer clients. And SCR has provided that form for you. And yes, online it is does affect commercial properties as well. One of the questions that we're routinely asked is, does this apply to commercial? There's no separate license law for residential agents and commercial agents. So everything that is required in the law is required of all licensees and all brokers in charge. There's a 4-way cross-check for those of you who have a trust account that will help you do your trust account reconciliation worksheet that is required every month. When you reconcile your trust account bank account, you are required to have a reconciliation worksheet in place as well that compares 4 different things. And there's a 4-way cross-check available for you from SCR. There's also a 2017 license law checklist from SCR that will give you some things to go over with your associated licensees. SCR put forth a transaction brokerage agreement. It is Form 138. Now remember, the Real Estate Commission gave you a template that is 1 page. Your SCR agreement is a few more pages, but there's different reasons for the form. The license law responsibility is to protect the public. SCR's responsibility is to protect you and keep you in compliance with the law. So you will see many times that the forms that come from SCR are much more lengthy because they have protections for us in there that were not in some of the other forms. And you have a brand new form we're going to look at this afternoon, Form 610, which is a wire transferred fraud acknowledgement form that will say, hey, listen, don't send any money to anybody that you get an email from without calling and verifying that that person sent you that email, because that's the fraudulent activity that's going on now. People are hacking your email. They're watching for you to have communications with banks and with buyers, and they know the dates that you are headed toward closing. Maybe that day or the day before, they will send an email to the buyer having hacked your email saying, send your $138,000 to this routing number. The buyer thinks that it's coming from the bank or coming from you. In actuality, it's coming from some hacker somewhere and fraudster. The SCR also has a flood disclosure form that you might want to add on to your sheet. I didn't put it on here because it's not a new form, but right now I would be attaching that to every offer that I give to the buyer. And that would say, I don't know if flood insurance is going to be required on this property, and I don't know how much it's going to be. If it is, it's up to you to figure out all of this and to make sure that you have budgeted wisely for that, and that'll take care of you on your wire fraud. Oh, and there is a manual of South Carolina real estate that is available. It has come from a publishing company called LexisNexis, LEXISNEXIS. It's a little pricey, I think, at $40, but it has a lot of research behind it, and it is a manual that has not only your license law, but many other applicable laws that apply to real estate and the transfer of real estate. So, hey, if you want to get yourself a Christmas present or birthday gift, that would help out. And as I mentioned, there are office policy templates at SCR. On the next page is just a cheat sheet on what the law requires to be in your office policy. These are the permissible brokerage relationships from which you can choose. You must have in your policy whether your company is going to offer fees to transaction brokers or buyer agents or both. You must have a list of services that you're going to provide to customers. You can pull that right from the license law. You must have a list of services that you will provide to clients. You can provide that additionally right from license law. Now, if I were the broker in charge, I probably would take those duties to customers and duties to clients and make a little brochure out of them that my associated licensees could give to a consumer who doesn't understand a lot of this anyway. That would say, these are the services that you get as a customer, these are the additional services that you get as a client. No commitment if you're a customer, commitment and responsibility as a client, something that would help them make a, quote, meaningful explanation of agency. And they could either post it to the website, send them something as an email attachment, but try to get them to understand the difference in the two levels of services. You also have to have how your brokerage relationships will be disclosed and documented, when and how dual and designated will be disclosed and documented, a fair housing declaration, as I mentioned, a policy on teams. Other areas at a minimum that should be covered for risk management are your property disclosure policy, RESPA, antitrust, equal opportunity, policy on harassment and safety, earnest money and delivery of and the use of the forms. This page will be posted on the website for those of you who did not get it on a download to go through today, and Josh will do that so that you can download it. Finishing up, NAR has been very busy, of course. They are the voice for real estate, and you can go there and find updated videos on the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, what's happening with 1031 exchanges. Keep that on your radar. There is a big move to do away with 1031 exchanges, and that could be a real problem for our industry, and your president's tax plan. A bill by Representative Mark Sanford would require that the guaranteed fees on Fannie and Freddie charged to lenders be actually used for real estate purposes and not made available for other governmental issues. Flood insurance, of course, is a major issue, and the Voice for Real Estate has a news video on the issue and urging Congress to reauthorize that. NAR has issued a policy statement that the administration's proposed doubling the standard deduction and retaining the mortgage interest deduction while eliminating most other itemized deductions would hurt homeowners. So take a look at that before you blindly endorse things, to make sure that it's in not only your personal best interest, but in the interest of homeowners as well. And begin to look at website accessibility. There's been 2 different rulings in 2 different states as to whether or not your website must be ADA compatible. The first one was with a pizza company, and they decided that they did not have to make it ADA compatible. And the second one was with a real estate company, where they said, yes, it did need to be made ADA compatible. So you know it's coming. And since much business is done over the internet, if ADA applies to commercial issues, then we need to get those websites where hearing impaired and vision impaired would be able to access the information. At nar.realtor, there are lists of things you can do in the meantime as you begin to update your websites. So more information there. There's a set of do's and don'ts that NAR has provided for you on dealing with affiliated business arrangements. Many of you have affiliated companies, closing companies, mortgage companies. Many of you sell home warranties, and etc. You have to be very careful with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau monitoring of affiliated business arrangements under RESPA. So go to NAR. If you have any affiliated business arrangements, look at all the disclosures and the rules that you have there, because you do not want to trigger a RESPA violation. Board of Directors decisions at the May legislative meeting were the continued funding of Project Upstream. Project Upstream is a broker initiative that has been going on for a couple of years. NAR has put millions and millions and millions of dollars in it, and it's going to allow the brokerage, when it's completed, to decide where their listings are exposed in the marketplace. The they supported a proposal to change the structure of Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and updated MLS policies. Now, here's a good thing for you, free websites for all. The realtors have a member benefit called Placester, Placester, and it will give free websites to all of you and your associated licensees. It includes hosting and IDX integration capabilities, and they're also available for single property websites. Single property websites were very popular in 2005 and 6, but they kind of went away. But it allows you to go in and create a website specific to that property where the web address becomes the property address, like 123waverlyway.com. And it gives you a real benefit to talk to the homeowner about, because many times they might say, well, what would you do for me that I can't do for myself? And it would be very nice to say, so I have a single property website that I'll be creating. I'll put a sign writer on your sign. I'll put a QR code so that consumer can just come by, take a picture with HomeSnap, click on the QR code, and it'll take them directly to the single property website. So I think that'll be a really big benefit. And remember that there are a variety of discounts at nar.realtor. In new member orientation, what I try to show them how to do is to take advantage of the benefits that you have from your state and national association so that their realtor dues are paid by the benefit they receive. For example, I use Sprint for my phone, and I have the all-you-can-eat business plan. I went out to Sprint on Woodruff Road in Greenville, and I gave them my NAR code, and I saved $34 a month off of my bill. Well, $34 a month with that one benefit, 12 months, is almost $400. That paid my realtor dues for the whole year. So I am a realtor for free and can take advantage of all the other benefits. So I'm making money being a realtor, whether I ever sold anything or not. So push those realtor benefits when you see them. We generally have a benefits page in the weekly, and NAR sends you some things as well. Any questions about anything that I have gone through? I know I had a lot. Any questions online? Okay. Question in the room.
You were talking about the flood insurance, and I was wondering if, and I've seen this in some properties that I own or other people I know own that they deal with since Katrina, that the FEMA has exaggerated the flood area. And it's up to the property owner to go back and prove them wrong. And I've seen several instances where this has happened in Georgia, which had to go back and prove that they were wrong. Y'all seen that a lot in South Carolina?
The flood insurance maps are redrawn routinely. The best way to find flood, whether or not a property is in a flood zone, is go to floodsmart.gov, and that will give you the maps. And sometimes the maps have been expanded, and the question that was answered was, have we seen expansion of flood maps in South Carolina? The answer to that is yes. And secondly, can they be challenged? And the answer to that is yes. But most of the time you have to get an outside source, and it's a lot of money to challenge the feds on those things. It can happen, but it takes a lot of time and energy.
My concern is that it's not happening only in Georgia and South Carolina. My daughter just moved to Montana, so the little town they're in. Now, the whole town's in the flood zone, which is in flooded, but they all have a flood.
Right. The remark is the expansion of flood insurance in the past 10 years has been tremendous, and it's not just in coastal states, not just in states around lakes, but sometimes it almost includes the entire state. if you have suggestions or needs from that, I'd suggest that you talk to David and let him bring before the SCR staff with that, because flood insurance is the major thing on the plate right now. Question right here in the front, please, sir. And the question's on the multiple buyer client disclosure form. The question is, would you be in dual agency if you have two buyer clients? Technically, under the law, the answer to that is no. But the way I look at it is that it is not DUAL, it is DUEL, ing buyer clients. And if you'll keep that in mind, because you're going to have to reduce disclosure to both of them as they dual it out to try to get their own offer through. So when you put the buyer under buyer agency agreement, you promise them full disclosure. Now you're going to have to take some of that disclosure back because you owe confidentiality to the other client as well. Therefore, the necessity for the form for them to agree to do that. Great question. Thanks for asking. Francine, you had a question in the back. Okay. Any other questions before we go to lunch? All right, we're ready to go to lunch now, and then we'll have a presentation by Josh from 1 to 2. Josh is going to go over some social media marketing techniques, and we're going to be having more and more of those on Free Fridays. And then I'd love to see some of you back both online and in class for the forms presentation this afternoon. Thanks for listening to me, and here's Miss Peggy for you.
Thank you, Diana. I'd like to ask David to come up and do the invocation. And after he does the invocation, just go straight to the kitchen and bring your plate back in here. And then our sponsor's going to take a few minutes to talk to you about their products.
Thank you, Peggy. If you'll bow with me, please. Lord, thank you for this beautiful day we've got, all the friendship and colleagues that we're here with today. Help us to learn more and more about our industry to help each and every one of us do our job better and please you in everything. Be with this food we're about to eat. Bless the cooks that cooked it and the sponsor that's producing it to us today. And thank you for each and every one here, and help them to prosper and be with them and their families. Forgive us all of our sins today, Lord, and watch over us as we go about our way this afternoon. In Jesus' name we ask it. Amen. Thank you.